All right, and we're live. Welcome to More Than Numbers, where the numbers are just the beginning. I'm one of your hosts, Bryce, joined by my co-host, Dave. Dave, we got a
Hello.
good one today. We got some fun segments that we're going to get into. We got some Champions League that we're going to talk about. Some games just dropped today. We got some college football. I had a bad pick in Colorado and in Texas that we need to get into. So we got some fun stuff in college football. We got our NFL picks with the NFC this week. Last time we did the AFC, so we're going to jump into the
Yep.
NFC. And then we're also going to get into the NBA. NBA season is dropping off. It's starting. Some interesting stuff happened right before the season went underway. We had Dame to the Bucks. Boston, we talked earlier on about did they win the trade getting rid of Marcus Smart. Let's get into that as we go. All right, so we're going to start off with some college football. Dave's been itching to get back into this topic with me because
It's
he's
been a good
just been
season.
laughing at my predictions a couple weeks ago. It comes back to bite you a little bit, but hey, man,
I'm trying
that's
to
the
tell you.
fun of it. So, Dave, I want to start off by talking about the rankings and who is in your top four. So,
Top four.
currently, they have Georgia at one, Michigan at two, Ohio State at three, and Florida State at four. Now, I believe some new rankings are going to drop here in the next couple weeks, which is going to be the big determining factor on who's really in the
Yes.
playoff or not. So,
Yeah.
give me your predictions right now on who you think should be in the top four, who's going to end on it.
All right. All right. So, the college football playoff rankings. Those are the only ones that matter. Those are coming out in about a week. Because those are going to be actually voted on by the committee. If I was the committee, I would have Georgia at one. They haven't lost yet, even though they haven't done anything too crazy. I would put them at one. I would actually put Ohio State at two. I'd put Michigan at three, and I'd put Florida State at four. But at the end of the day, you still have the Ohio State and Michigan game coming up,
Mm-hmm.
so someone's going to have a loss. So I think that there's an easy opportunity for Oklahoma or Washington State to sneak in there. That's what
So
I got.
why did you move? Why did you move Ohio State over Michigan right now at two to three? Why the change there?
I don't think Michigan has, in my opinion, a marquee win yet.
Mm-hmm.
Where Ohio State already beat Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I think both of them have their strengths and weaknesses, I think that Ohio State's done just a little more. Um, if I had my way, I would put Florida State at two, and then have them two at three and four. But uh, LSU has done well, right? LSU's done well, not well, but they've kept the boat afloat at least. But Clemson hasn't done well. So Florida State's
Mm-hmm.
wins, um, though their wins, some of them don't look as good. Like Boston
Right.
College only winning small.
Mm-hmm.
Clemson is just it. There's a reason why there's a term called Clemsoning. So
Right. I mean, yeah, you're looking at LSU. No, I mean, LSU's ranked 15 right now at 6-2, so that's good for Florida State.
yeah,
When do we play Notre Dame? When does Florida State play Notre Dame?
they don't.
They don't play them this year?
No,
Oh,
no.
okay. I'm a bit surprised by that. I thought they did. Okay. So, something that I wanted to ask you, because maybe it was more so me on how I ranked, last time we went over this. Obviously, I had put Texas at one, and unfortunately for me, they lose to
Yeah,
Oklahoma at home,
yep.
right? But I had put Texas originally a couple weeks ago at one because they had a marquee win, whereas Georgia and Michigan really didn't. So why
Okay.
for you, where with Michigan, right? You said they haven't really beaten anybody marquee yet, right? I don't think
I don't think
Georgia
they've
has
done
either.
anything that crazy.
So with Ohio State being undefeated with a marquee win versus Notre Dame, although potentially lucky, why would that not bump Ohio State to one, Georgia two, Michigan three, maybe Florida State four? Like, why
I
doesn't
don't
that
think
marquee matter enough with these preseason rankings? Like, as long as they don't lose, they don't move. Like, that's part of what I don't really get sometimes.
I don't because it's very hard uh, Give me 1 second. I'm pulling up the Michigan schedule here. Let's see here. Um, Minnesota, I mean, they won their rivalry game. Oh, that's okay. They won their rivalry game, but it's Michigan State. They won it 49-0, right? They've beaten
Jesus.
everybody convincingly, but
Right.
again, nobody that really sticks out, and you're like, wow, okay, you beat, them.
Hmm.
You've only beaten your worst rival, and you beat them bad. Um,
Right.
but as far as your question about Georgia, they've won back-to-back titles, and they're still undefeated. So, um, unless something crazy happens, like one of their powder puff games comes down to the wire, and they have to win on a field goal, I would find it very difficult to move them from the one spot if they keep winning.
Okay, so really with the rankings, like from these preseason rankings, really unless like no amount of marquee wins is going to move a team up as long as those teams don't lose. Because that's what I think is wrong sometimes with college football with these rankings is if you don't have a tough schedule, right? And yeah, you do your
Right.
job and you lose, right? And it just there's no movement sometimes with those top two, three teams until like again Ohio State maybe plays a Michigan, and then it's like, well, does
Well,
one of them drop out of the playoff because of one game at the end of the season where they were in the rankings the whole time? So
well,
sometimes I
this is
wish there
what we
was a
ran
little bit
into
more
with UCF.
competition. Say that again.
Do you remember a few years back, UCF was on a tangent, right? They were winning everything. They were winning all, a lot. They had
Hmm.
that undefeated season, et cetera, et cetera. But and UCF fans just kept saying, "Oh, well, the only thing we can do is play our schedule and beat who's in front of us." Yeah, that's true, right? But if I'm playing against Power 5 schools and you're playing against Group of 5 schools, we don't have the same uh, resume to
Hmm.
go because the playoff committee, they're
So
looking at your resume.
let me
You
let me
see what I'm
cut you
saying?
there. Absolutely, I totally agree with that. But what happens if you're both in a Power Five conference? So in this instance, the where I get to you is Ohio State. Ohio State ranked three right now.
Hmm.
In the top four, you would say arguably has one of the better marquee wins, right? So
Right,
why would they're in the Big Ten, arguably the best conference besides maybe the
right now.
Pac-12 and SEC right now. So with their only marquee win, Georgia not, Michigan not, why does that not push them into a one and still keeps Georgia at a two, Michigan at a three, Florida State at a four? That's just what I'm curious on with the rankings
Because
sometimes.
because no matter what, you can't with a sound mind move Georgia if Georgia keeps winning.
But
You
that's
can't do
only,
that.
but this is what's interesting. How come they do that with every other team when it's not the top rankings? So for example, if I'm a team that starts we'll say at Texas. I started at Texas as 15 in the nation preseason
Okay.
ranking. Now I'm winning games, so I move up.
Right.
Why can't that happen with teams in the top two, three, or four that don't lose
Because
fluctuate?
they've already solidified. Okay, so with this before the college football playoff and them actually voting on it, it's on a points system. It's kind of the same way as the men's FIFA rankings. It's on a points
Hmm.
system, right? So you might see a team have, let's say, 1,600 points, right? But then the team right below them that you're like, oh, they should be above them. Well, they're close. They're at like 1570, you know.
Hmm.
But based off of the way it's doing its thing, it's not. They just don't have the
Right.
points.
It's
But
obviously it's
also,
strength of schedule, but it's still based off of strength of schedule, meaning who they play their opponents, who their opponents play,
right.
how their opponents finish.
And remember, it's
Based
how
off
your
of
games look.
home, right? Well, I know it's aesthetics, but it's also based off of like home wins, away, spread, like how much did you beat them by, turnovers, like margin of victory. I understand it goes into all of that, and it's still like you go with
Yeah.
the eye test on they're just dominating, nobody looks like them.
Right.
And I completely get that again to a certain point, right? Again, right now, you are essentially saying, well, Georgia was ranked one at the beginning of the season. They haven't lost, so they don't deserve to be moved off of one, but it was a preseason ranking. So as you go into the season, it's like, okay, they haven't lost, but let's look at who they've played. Let's look at the other teams that are undefeated, the other teams that are undefeated and who they've played. And then based off of where we're at now, this is where people should be ranked. So,
Right.
we'll go into circles with that. Obviously, Georgia should be in the top four. I'm not saying they're moved out of it. And we're really speaking that it doesn't really have matter, with the rankings right now, because obviously it's based off of the end of the season.
Right.
But it is interesting to me how obviously essentially all the other rankings can move up or down. Granted, it's based off of wins and losses. But, the teams that are sometimes preseason ranked at the top, if they don't lose, they never fluctuate. Very interesting
Yeah.
most of the time. Okay, so top four you gave, if I'm not mistaken, you gave Georgia 1, you had Ohio State 2, Michigan 3, Florida State 4.
Yes.
I think that I think you're spot on with that. Even though I went into this whole segment about Ohio State, right? Should they be 1?
Yeah.
I think obviously you're right. You would still have Georgia at 1. I think Ohio State 2, Michigan 3. And I think you have to keep Florida State at 4, although Oklahoma, with the win against Texas, right now being undefeated, I think the win against Texas is better than Florida State's win versus LSU. So that's going to be an interesting one coming to the end of the season here, because right now Washington's also 7-0. So Washington's right behind them at 5, Oklahoma at 6.
I don't. I
Do
I don't
you
know. I think that's tough.
Well, do you think? Let me ask you this. Do you think if all teams win out? So, I don't know that we have Washington scheduled. Washington does not play Oklahoma. So, if Washington wins out, Oklahoma wins out because I believe they would have to play Texas again, and Florida State wins out. Who do you think falls into the 4? Do you think they keep Florida State, or do you think a Washington or Oklahoma falls into the 4, knocking Florida State out of the playoff?
I think at that point you want to see what the country wants, right? Washington State, I'm sorry, Washington. They're like a Nebraska or like a Wyoming. This is a place that nobody, like, yeah, you're winning games, but that's not gonna get merchandise sales. That's not gonna get the money, right? And I know that sounds crazy, and that almost makes it sound like, they're picking base just off that. But again, college football is also part of the eye test, right?
Right. Well, it's
So
still about brands at the end of the day.
yeah,
So
and
what brand is
out
bigger,
of those,
Washington or Florida State? This
Florida State will be
this
in.
woo, who's a bigger brand, Washington or Florida State? It's got to be Florida State, right?
Florida State, big time.
Got to
Big
be
time.
Florida State. Okay. But Oklahoma, but see, now this is where it gets interesting. Oklahoma or Florida State, because both are.
It would be
I'd say
It would be
equal
Florida.
brands.
It would be Florida State, and they would say, "Well, let's see. The last time, if somebody in that room is just saying, okay, well, let's see what happened the last time these two played. Well, last year, Florida State played Oklahoma in a bowl game and beat them.
But do you think they count last year? Because they're not supposed to. It's supposed to
It's
just
the
be based
human.
off
It's the
this
human
year.
in you. You know.
You think
It's
that's
like
the
when you're a
human in?
lawyer and you say something and the judge is like, the jury will disregard. You can't. I've already heard it.
I've already
You
heard
said it.
semantics
You
at
know.
this point, guys. It
You
doesn't
can
matter.
tell me not to, but you said it.
So yeah, as a Florida State fan, here everyone heard that. As a Florida State fan, Dave is counting on the human error to get Florida State in.
It's not the human
To
error.
get Florida
It's not the
State
human-
in.
it's
You
making
heard
the
it here
right
first.
call. Make the right call.
All right. I would agree with you there. I would hope, obviously, as a Florida State fan as well, I would hope Florida State gets in. But it would be interesting because that means, Oklahoma would have beaten Texas twice. And I don't think Texas loses again until they potentially have to play Oklahoma in their conference final. So that would be really interesting. A lot of the talk that I'm hearing is that a lot of people think that Texas will beat them the second time around.
Okay.
You never know. So we'll see what happens there. But I agree with your top 4. All right. Next one I want to get into. I've been dreading this a little bit. I think I'm still gonna be okay. I don't think my opinion on it was that wrong. But
Go ahead.
Colorado, gotta talk about Colorado and that stinking collapse that they had against Stanford. You know, obviously Deion Sanders, you saw his locker room talk, said it himself. Absolutely embarrassing. What was it? 29 nothing at half, and then to lose
I'm Listen,
46
last time I
43.
saw somebody give something up like that, it was a Falcon. You know what I mean?
Eesh. Wait, God, is there any time you can't throw in a Brady reference? Is there?
I, I don't know.
We could be talking
Maybe.
about NBA. We can be talking about NBA, and Dave's gonna be like, Brady. Yeah.
Hey, hey. Speaking of, really quick, I just want to take 3 seconds to say congratulations because he signed as a partial owner of the Las Vegas Aces. So my man just got another ring. So good on you, buddy.
Oh yeah. Now you think he's gonna start getting into own? Well, obviously he got into some ownership, but that will be interesting to see where he lands with owning teams and whatnot. But so we'll give a congrats to Brady there. He bought in specifically just to win another ring. I think that was
Oh
the.
my God.
I
Oh my
think that's
God.
why he
Hey,
did it.
work smarter, not harder. Okay. But
Clip it.
yes,
Clip
Colorado
it. Clip
collapse.
that right there. Work smarter, not harder. All right, so Colorado.
Colorado collapse.
Colorado collapse absolutely killed me. Um, but I don't think I was that wrong so far with my predictions. Right when we had spoke, they were about to play USC. They played
Mm-hmm.
USC a lot closer than I thought. You were actually right, thinking that it was going to be a decently close game. I think we're now seeing that USC is very overranked
Of
than
course.
really where they
Absolutely.
are. Clearly. Um, and Caleb Williams really struggling against the better teams is what we're seeing. So definitely overranked there. But we're gonna stay on Colorado. So Dave, originally you had asked me if I thought Colorado would be bowl eligible at the end of the
Right.
season, and
Okay.
undoubtedly I say yes. They have 5 games remaining. They play UCLA next. They play Oregon State after. Then
Okay.
they play Arizona, Washington State, Utah. They have Arizona at home, and then Oregon State at home, and the rest of the games are away. But
Okay.
I think I think they lose to UCLA. Well, see, this is where it's going to get tough because I think they do it in their last 3 games of the season. I think they I think they lose to UCLA. I think they lose to Oregon State. I think they beat Arizona. I think they beat Washington State. And then I think they now lose to Utah. So I do think they get their 6 wins, but I think they only get 2 wins out of their last 5. So I think they finish, what, 6-6? And I do think they're
Mm.
bowl eligible at that point. But they play, I mean, UCLA right now ranked 23, Oregon State ranked 11th, Utah ranked 13th.
Okay.
Part of me wants to say they win one of those ranked games, but seeing that defense right now, just the amount of points they're giving up in essentially every game besides, Arizona State. I mean, teams are scoring on them left and right. So they have to win in a shootout, essentially. They're not
Well,
winning anything on defensive plays. So, you know, could they nick one of those games? Like, could they nick one of the games between UCLA, Oregon State, Utah? Yes, I do think they can. I'm just not seeing it right now. They barely got out of Arizona State with the win. Before that, obviously, we saw a good, score wise, we saw a good score against USC, but really they were out of it for a lot of it. And then same
right.
with Oregon, they got demolished. So I don't think they have the defense right now. I think they have the offense, but without being able to stop, realistically almost anybody, I can't see them winning the majority of their 5 games. So I think they do. I think they only get 2 wins out of their next 5. And I'm gonna pick them against the non-ranked teams right now. So because they have Arizona at home, and then they go away to Washington State, but I just don't think Washington State is strong enough. So I think they finish 6-6, and I think they are bowl eligible.
Um, Do you remember? Remember when Lamar Jackson first started playing with the Ravens,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they were running that triple option, college style offense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were killing it, and they were doing great, right? Problem is, people pick up on that. People watch tape, now they know what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's all professionals. Colorado, you heard him say it. We're not there yet, right? Colorado doesn't have those guys yet. And
Mm-hmm.
now people know exactly what that offense wants to do, and they know exactly how to exploit the defense.
Mm-hmm.
I can honestly say I can see them winning one game out of the next 5. One game. I don't even know which one it's going to be. But I can't because what I can see is I can see a team that has been built and fed with a lot of hype,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, but you're not that team right now, you know, and obviously you keep getting commitments. You could be that team, right? But you have a long way to go before you're considered, a national powerhouse. You know, um, you're still in a position where if you lose another, let's say they go this week and they lose to
Mm-hmm.
UCLA, right? Now you're on a skid. Okay, now you're on a skid, and you're basically now going to have to rely on some of the leaders in that locker room to hold it together. Because if not, now you just put your hands up because you're going down on the roller
Mm-hmm.
coaster.
I see. I get where you're going with that. Obviously, I think the next 2 weeks are tough. UCLA, Oregon State, but I think because they then have Arizona at home and then Washington State. Not saying easy wins, but definitely winnable games compared to maybe the other two. I think they get those bounce back games there. So I can
Okay.
obviously see them losing 3 straight because they just lost to Stanford. So loss against UCLA, loss against Oregon State. I think they get it back versus Arizona. I think they then win at Washington State, and then that Utah game, to me, after having 3 straight losses, then getting 2 wins, that Utah game could be the one that I say maybe they win it. Last game of the season, right? Um, you know, that's where I could see maybe they've turned it around towards the end of the season a little bit. But yeah, I
Okay.
mean, if they lose to Arizona, and so they would have gone 4 straight losses. If they lose that Arizona game, then they're not going to be bowl eligible. Like I'll say that now. If they lose that Arizona game, they will not be bowl eligible because at most they get 5 wins.
Yeah.
So that Arizona game is going to be crucial for them because that's going to be like, can you turn it around after really tough stretch in the Pac-12 right there. So
Right.
we'll see what
Right.
happens, but I still think they're bowl eligible. All right, we're gonna go on to the next topic here, Dave. NFL. We're gonna go from college football to NFL, right?
Okay.
Last time we were on, we spoke on our AFC picks. This week, we want to touch on our NFC picks. Now, luckily, we've seen a lot of games, so hopefully our picks are pretty accurate, right?
Okay.
Barring injuries and whatnot.
Okay.
Okay, but let's go into the NFC. So, in the NFC East, right now we have Philadelphia at the top and then Dallas
Right.
behind them. Okay. In the NFC North, we have Detroit and then Minnesota behind them. In the NFC South, we have Atlanta and then Tampa behind them, also tied with New Orleans, the Saints. And then in the NFC West, we have the 49ers at the top and then Seattle behind them. So I will let you start. Give me your picks for the East, North, South, and West on who you think the winners are going to be.
Winners. Winners. So just let's start easy. Eagles are going to win the East. Okay.
Yep.
Eagles are going to win the East, and the 49ers are going to win the West. Those are your simple ones.
Yeah,
Okay.
those are
Uh,
locks almost.
I think as
Well,
far as say it again.
I said those are locks, and then I said, well, I mean, San Francisco, the last couple losses they've had.
They've been a little shaky, but if you look here, you got the Lions that are doing non-lion things.
Hmm.
Okay, um, but we'll see how that goes down the line. I think you saw the Vikings last night in that game. Uh, they showed what they can do, and that was interesting because usually Kirk Cousins prime time, it's
It's a
bad match,
guarantee. It's
but
normally a guaranteed loss. Yeah, maybe
right, but
he finally
he
put a
did well.
performance in because he knows he's on that trade block,
Yeah.
and he's like, hey guys, I can play.
Hey, I'll take it. And for the South, I mean, realistically, I want to say
God,
the Buccaneers.
that's
I want
terrible,
to say the
isn't it?
Buccaneers, and I'll tell you why. The Falcons quarterback has the most turnovers in the NFL.
Here's was a crazy
So
stat for them. Ready? Their net points are -18. The Bucks are at -1, and the Saints are at 6. So they're leading that division right now with net points in the negative, which is
yeah,
really interesting. You know, normally you see teams. I don't think any other team like that that's leading the division right now is in the negative. So I mean, the NFC South is definitely the weakest. So you're gonna pick the Bucks there. Who are you going in the North? Who's
I
your
honestly,
official pick?
I really want to say the Vikings. I really do. You know, I
The,
believe in the Vikings more than I believe in anything that's coming out of Detroit.
Interesting, interesting. I think that just has more to do with history than really the last couple of years with Detroit. Because I think
Right,
Detroit,
right.
obviously, in the last couple of years, has realistically, well, maybe last year. I'm not going to say last couple of years. I think last year and this year, they've obviously been more consistent than Minnesota.
Well,
Now, the one thing going for Minnesota is that they have a really nice stretch of games coming up that are all very winnable games for them. So they could go on a 4 or 5 game stretch right here of wins back to back to back.
right.
But if Kirk Cousins gets traded, I don't think so. So in this next week, it's really going to determine for the Vikings because Kirk Cousins' name has been on the trading block for the last month or so.
Well, I want to throw something in here that I just noticed. We're really going to get to see if the Lions have turned a corner because the
Yeah.
Lions play on Thanksgiving.
Okay. Don't they always? They
Um,
always play on Thanksgiving though.
well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. There's usually a few things that you can guarantee for Thanksgiving: apple pie, turkey, and a Lions loss. Okay,
Hmm.
so if you can win on Thanksgiving, you got me as a believer that you're at
Who do
least
they play on Thanksgiving?
the Packers,
That
two and
I
four
think they win
Packers.
that. They win that.
Yeah.
They win that. It's the Packers.
Well, the Packers are. It's actually kind of sad. It's actually kind of sad because the Packers, these Packers fans were talking with such bass in their voices. You know, Aaron Rodgers is gone. I don't even hear these people anymore. It's nothing.
Yeah, Jordan Love started. He looked like you were like, okay, like he can be something, and he's gonna make some mistakes here and there, but like you'll be okay. And then the last couple weeks, you're more thinking, okay, yeah, he's looking like a backup. Like,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
capable of winning every game now and again, sure, and he doesn't necessarily throw a fully bad ball, and yeah, he looks capable, but not to the extent. Now, are we still being harsh on him in the sense of like again, it's still his first season starting? If I'm not mistaken, Aaron Rodgers in his first season, I think only got seven to well, I was gonna say 7 to 9 wins, but 9 wins is a lot. So
yeah.
I can't remember what Aaron Rodgers' first record was. Stat guy, stats, Dave, stats guy. What
Ooh,
the?
Aaron Rodgers first season.
You're supposed to be on it, man. You're a
I
stat
am.
guy.
I'm supposed to.
Okay, so but I thought he might have ended 8-8. So I don't think Jordan Love is going to be able to get there now because they're where are they at? They're 2-4. But if he gets to 6 wins on the season, do you really say that in his first season as a starter that's atrocious compared to maybe some other guys that we've seen like a Zach Wilson? I I say no. I don't think it's awful to that extent. Now, the thing that goes against Jordan Love is that
Right.
he's obviously been in the league in that system for 3 years already, right?
Okay.
And so, but everybody, it's funny when people make, um, I'm blanking on the word now, but they'll make an excuse for one person and then it's a reason for another. And I've
Of
heard, a
course.
lot of people talk about with these rookie QBs, they always say like, no, put him in. The starts are what matter. Like he needs to get the reps. He needs to get through the mistakes. And then you have a situation like Jordan Love where it's, yeah, but he's been in the league for 3 years. It's like, but he hasn't played.
Right.
Realistically,
Right.
he
Right.
hasn't played. So it's very different in practice than in the games. And now he's actually getting game reps. So you would almost look at it and say, I mean, he hasn't played in a game in 3 years, 4 years. I know he got a couple games when Rogers was injured. He got a couple, but it's tough to say that as it's tough to say that instead of being the out and out starter that he is now, like on a week out basis. So, we'll see what happens there. Okay, so I'm gonna give my picks now. I in the NFC East, I agree. I think Philadelphia takes it. They're 6-1 right now. Dallas is 4-2. I don't think Dallas catches them. In the NFC North, I definitely am going to go to the Detroit Lions over Minnesota. Detroit still has one of the best offenses in the league, and Minnesota has its moments. I think Minnesota is going to go on a run, but ultimately, I think Detroit wins that. Again, they're 2 games ahead right now. The NFC South, I think I'm actually going to go the Saints. I think if Derek Carr is able to get healthy, now I don't know if he's back healthy, if he's going to play, but I think with Derek Carr, I think the Saints win that division over the Falcons. And then
Right.
in the NFC West, I think you're right. I think, the 49ers really all day long. We saw them come back to earth a little bit. But if those guys get healthy again with Brock Purdy, you know, it's not going to be an issue. But obviously, what's interesting is that I think we've seen more so what people really thought of Brock Purdy. It's like, well, is this guy elite? You see a couple injuries and now they've had a couple losses. It's like, okay, no, he's a very capable quarterback. He's a very good quarterback. You would still maybe put him in the top 15, top 20 just because of what he's done last year to this year. But you definitely don't say he's an elite quarterback like people were
So,
trying to make him out to be.
so are you saying he's a Christian McCaffrey injury away from being just average Joe?
No, I
Because
don't think he's.
knowing that
I don't think
McCaffrey
he's
can
an
run
average. I
gives
don't
him
think he's an
opportunity.
right, right. I don't think he's an average Joe. But what I think we were seeing with him is exactly what Dak is. Now, I think
Okay.
Dak right now is ultimately still better than Purdy, but I think people grossly overestimated what Dak was in his first couple years with Dallas because of that O line, because of the run game that they had at the time. And so that's what I think Brock Purdy more so is. I
Okay.
don't think Dak, and I know this is interesting because we went to a separate segment here, but Dak is not a Super Bowl quarterback without a team built around him,
Right.
right? There's obviously only a handful of guys that can actually go to a Super Bowl or win you multiple games, what you would say in quotations almost by themselves, where it's a group of guys, you just need to surround them. As long as people kind of stay healthy, they figure it out. Like a Mahomes, like a Brady was. I don't necessarily think a Jalen Hurts, but we're still kind of seeing that team win.
Yeah.
Um, so not, I mean, you kind of are hard pressed to think about a lot of QBs that realistically can do what a Mahomes or a Brady can do, right? So, but Purdy to me is like that, is definitely like a Dak. It has to, like, the team has to be there, and they're gonna look really good. But if
Right.
you make them have to win it themselves, it's not gonna happen. So
Right.
that's what I think, especially because Christian McCaffrey hurt, so your running back and the short passes out of the backfield have been, you know, taking a hit. So it's
Yep.
easy option to McCaffrey, and then I believe Dabo was hurt as well, wasn't he?
Yes.
Sanders, right? So that's one of his top wide receivers as well. So two of his top
Debo
targets,
Samuel.
Debo Samuel.
I
Yeah,
said Dabo Sanders.
I said Sanders. Jesus, guys, I'm looking bad right now. Let's
Damn,
cut
Debo.
that.
Look what he did to you.
Debo. So I think his top two targets, right? His top two targets he didn't have, and look at the results, 2 losses. So I do think that affects him, obviously, and he's still almost like what you consider a rookie QB. Yes, he
Yeah.
started last year, but I don't think you really fault somebody as a rookie for not having their best targets and then they look different. Of course they do. They're
Right.
still building into becoming a full pro in the league. All right.
Right.
So that's our NFL picks on the NFC this week. We'll see what happens. I think I'm more confident in our NFC picks than our AFC. So I think we'll be pretty good on that. I think the toss up really is in the NFC North and the NFC South. So we'll see what happens
Okay.
there. All right.
What do we got?
On to the next segment I have for you, my guy. Always one of my favorites, for me at least. I know the viewers are always going to think so, because we get into some soccer. Let's get it. Let's go. Champions League. Woo woo! We had some Champions League games that dropped today.
Yep.
We'll let you start off with your team. We got different teams over here. Man United fan on my end. Real Madrid fan on Dave's. Both good results. More so, I would say, for a Madrid fan. Technicality-wise, for a ManU fan, we got a result. Got a lot to talk about there. But let's start with you, Dave, on Real Madrid. Give me your thoughts.
I think that we've put together some good games. We've got 3 out of 3. I think things are still as crazy as this sounds. Okay, I think Ancelotti is still trying to figure out exactly what the best way to utilize everybody is. I saw something in the media that the higher ups in Madrid don't like how Kroos and Modric are being used. And I'm just a guy, watching, but I think it's reasonable at this point in their career to not have them both on the field at the same time when you have young talent. I mean, Madrid, in my opinion, has the best midfield probably on the planet right now. Okay, I think that obviously that still has to be proven, right? And now we're in the Champions League and we're going to get into the knockout round. So really, we're going to see what's what, And as long as we keep performing, then we're fine. But for me, I think that the midfield that we have right now has been doing phenomenal things. I mean, if you have Valverde and Bellingham there, then you can really figure out if you want Tchouaméni there, if you want Camavinga there. You have a lot of options. I think that the way that they shift Vinny around, up top, is huge, because you can see him up there, playing a 9 role, even an 11 role, right? But then you'll see him over on the wing, and you're like, whoa, why? What's going on here? And he's like, today he was just causing problems. And obviously because of that, I mean that's just a winger doing that. And now you have Bellingham coming out of the midfield and just doing amazing things. And I think I said this last time. All you want is this to not be another Eden Hazard, and he has really said, all right, I'm going to make sure it's not that, and he's going the direct opposite and gone way above what my imagination could have been for him. I mean, I think it's phenomenal.
I mean,
Just
I
keep
think
scoring.
where you guys are performing right now is pretty admirable, considering that you're having Rodrigo play as a striker. So there was no, I mean, I don't really understand it. There was no backup plan for Benzema leaving. I don't really understand how they didn't bring in a striker to replace Benzema when they did. I know they've been trying to go for Mbappe for years, but Mbappe is not a center striker. So that's what's kind of interesting about Madrid's plan right now. And it's, if you're going for Mbappe, great, but Mbappe kind of plays out to the left. Why on earth would you buy Mbappe when you have Vinny? you can't move. You should not move anywhere else besides where he's been playing. So
Right.
then does Mbappe come in and play a different position?
Yeah.
That's insane. I highly doubt it based off of, all the reports are talking about how his character, his attitude is at PSG. That's not the type of guy that's going to come in and say, "Oh, I'll move for another guy." So,
I don't think that that's the case if he comes to Real, because I think he's always wanted to play at Real. Um,
but do you think he
but
plays through the middle, or do you think he plays right? Because either
I
way,
think he plays through the middle.
I
I think he
think
plays
that
through the
that's
middle.
insanity. He's never played that his whole entire career. Why would you play him there now all of a sudden? I think that that's a bad move from Madrid. I think personally that that's a terrible move for Madrid because you would then have potentially, I know it sounds great on paper, a Vinny, Mbappe, and Rodrigo.
Right.
But Mbappe is not a striker. He's not an out and out center striker.
Right.
He's a guy that has to use his speed. So it like tactically to me at least doesn't logically make sense to have those three, even if you have them float and go wherever, because ultimately you need somebody in the middle.
Right.
I think you saw that connection between Vinny and Benzema and what happened when Vinny has somebody to play it into the Benzema. So that's
Right.
why I just don't think it would work with Mbappe. I think you need to get an out and out center striker. And so that's going to be interesting to me. Are they able to get it in January? Do they have to wait until, the end of the season? I think if they wait until the end of the season, I think Madrid's going to be in a world of hurt. I think they've been able to manage right now because Bellingham has been scoring off the charts. Right now, Bellingham has 8 goals in La Liga in 9 games, and he's 3 for 3 in the Champions League. And he's essentially the reason. I personally say he's the reason you guys are actually winning games because
Yeah.
of his
Yeah. Yeah.
goals. So if you
Yeah.
don't have Bellingham at all takes a dip, almost essentially meaning he doesn't score in every game because that's what he's doing right now. Where are the goals coming from? And so I think if Madrid does not get a striker in January, I think the season's just going to start to just go down and down and down. And I think they're going to be out. They're going to be out of La Liga. They're going to be out of the Champions League because they're too good of a team, and the teams that they're going to play are going to be too good to not have a striker for the whole season. And I think
Now, do you
Rodrigo,
think?
I believe Rodrigo's even come out. I think he came out in Brazil or one of the Brazilian interviews that he had at international break, and he said he's not happy playing as the number 9. He's having to do it. He's being forced to do it right now at Madrid because they don't have a striker. That's not his
Right.
preferred position. So you're just making like, look what happens when a guy, they're still winning games, but I was gonna say, look what happens to a guy's attitude and how they play when it's not right. Sometimes like a Marcus Rashford with United, it just doesn't look right. Winning always helps.
Yep.
It's an antidote to everything. So maybe, you're able to keep him okay, his attitude okay, and he's, he may be frustrated, but you're still winning games and he's playing. But I think at that level, that top level, guys'
Right.
egos, are tremendous. And I think that starts to kind of piss him off a little bit because he's
I
not
agree.
playing in the position that actually gets to utilize his abilities to the best of his abilities. So that's going to be an interesting one. But there's something that I wanted to ask you here. All right, Dave. So I think I got a big one for you. I think this could turn some heads.
Okay.
A lot of people may disagree, but since we're talking about Madrid, do you think that Jude Bellingham right now is the best player in the world? Yes or no?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. 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 Absolutely. 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 Why is that?
Why
Okay.
is that? Why
Because
is that?
two things. Two things. Not only does he have the skill, okay? Not only does he have the skill, he's also
Hmm.
being able to utilize what's around him as well, right? Because not only does he have the goals, he's also having the assists, okay? But think about it like this, right? Think about it like this. If you look at like most valuable player, it's not just you scoring. It's also that you are that important to the team's success, right? And him right now, like him right now, what he's doing is just monumental for Madrid, right? And he's having all those pieces around him
Hmm.
work at such a great level. Madrid's at the top of La Liga, right? Madrid's on into the knockout rounds in the Champions League, right? And
Hmm.
I'm telling you, listen, when he puts his arms out after a goal, you could see it. Like the crowd is loving it. I mean everything. I think right now, with what he's doing, absolutely, absolutely, he's the best in the world. Absolutely.
Mm. That's a really interesting one. Yeah, I mean, you're right. They are top of the league right now. What do they have? Let's see, 25 points. Wow, interesting. With Girona with 25 points as well, and then Barca with 24. Okay. I mean, look, I think I agree with you right now. Everyone I think thought that it was going to be okay,
Right.
Holland or Mbappe. And a little bit out of nowhere, or essentially within 2 years, it shot
And I
to,
want to throw
is
one
it
one
Jude
piece out
Bellingham?
there. I'm so sorry.
Now, the
Remember, he's younger than the both of them.
okay, all right, I will
I'm sorry.
forgive you for cutting me off.
He's three
Say that
years
again.
younger than the both of them.
Yeah, that's the other thing that's wild. Well, for me, it's now I don't think we really saw the level of production right now that we're seeing for Madrid that he
Right.
obviously was
Right.
performing for Dortmund, right? But everybody saw the power, the ability. I say ability of like
Right.
technical ability on the ball, his IQ, his passing ability, his tactics. Like everyone was seeing it in one season at Dortmund, and for him to then go in and essentially, and people may disagree with me, he is the most
Absolutely.
important player
Yeah.
on Madrid right now. And it's not even a question. And to me, it's the sole reason for him being this is because of his goal scoring ability. So not totally wrong from you, Dave, but I will say he's not really getting the assists that you think of. He's only has 2 assists in La Liga right now in 9 games. So realistically, it's
But
about his goal scoring. But as I mentioned
okay.
when we talked a little bit earlier, right? The If it wasn't for his goal scoring, Madrid would where would they be right now? Right? Where would they be? Especially in La Liga. I mean, without a center striker, out and out forward for Madrid,
Yeah.
he's been their
For sure.
saving grace. So I think yes. I think because we're seeing him as a midfielder, right? And he's not a striker. And he's putting up what you would consider forward numbers, right? Almost a goal a game. Okay. I would say yes. I think currently in this form right now, I don't think that there's somebody playing at a higher level than Jude Bellingham. Also because of how he's playing for England in the international team. I mean, that team is essentially, it's like Jude Bellingham is the number one option in that whole team in the midfield. For that to
Yes.
have, what is he,
I think
19?
he's either
Is he
19 or
18,
20.
19, 20? However, however old he is, the fact that he's not a piece to the like a final piece to the puzzle, and that he's essentially the first piece on the board that they're building from, I also think says a lot for England. So I would agree with you. I think currently right now Jude Bellingham
20.
is the best player in the world in form. 20.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't that make
Oh
you
yeah.
feel old?
Born
Looking
in
back, you're like, what was I
'03.
doing
What's
at 20?
happening
Was
right
I the
now?
best player in the world? Nope. All these young
Really?
kids, man, making us look bad. All right. So Jude Bellingham, it's a great one. All right. So now we talked about your team. Got to talk about my team, United. Oh boy, is there a lot to get into? I don't even think we have all the time to get into it. Okay, so United plays Copenhagen in the Copenhagen in the Champions League today, and squeak
I'm not
out a
gonna lie. I
result
looked at
one
this before
zero.
it
I
started, and I
mean,
said, "Man, I hope Copenhagen does it."
barely beat them. That- You just wanted the reaction. You just wanted to hop on here and be
Just
like,
with the eyes, you
so
know?
okay, just the eyes. So the main points that I want to talk about with United, to me, there's three. To me, there's three.
Okay.
There's Maguire. Got to
Okay.
touch on Maguire because he scored the winner. Onana. I'm gonna touch on Onana. Finally makes a save. And then the third piece, which I think is the most controversial, is I think Ten Hag is not the answer at United, and I saw it tonight. So I'm going to start with Maguire. I want to give him his credit because he's had a really tough last couple years at United. He decided to stay. I think it had more to do with money than anything else. So I'm not really giving him the compliments of like I'm going to
Right.
stay and really work hard. No, it was down to money. Okay, but he's
Right.
still been a professional the whole time, right? It's not like he's been a locker room cancer or a bad attitude in quotations because it's skeptical
Okay.
like a
Yep.
Sancho, right? Potentially, right? Not saying that he was a locker room cancer, but just in the sense of attitude wise, there's been a lot of stuff that's come out with Sancho, attitude potentially, his training, right? Ten Hag touched on his training. He hasn't been with the team for a month and a half, more so to do because he won't apologize to the manager. Okay, so we haven't seen that out of Maguire. So I'm going to give him his props there. I'm going to give him his props for being a professional. I'm going to give him his props for what people would consider, or I have to
Okay.
consider for him, good performances. But for Maguire, I think ultimately what we're seeing is just a player that's getting back into somewhat form
Okay.
for himself, but ultimately is still not good enough for United. And I am just hoping that they do not fall for this right spell that he's going to have in the team because of the injuries that we have. I ultimately hope
Okay.
he is still sold. And I hope that this is actually I'm crossing my fingers that this is actually better for United because we get a player that hopefully is playing better. We then get his stock raised where people then still want to buy him or more
Okay.
teams want to come in to buy him. And I'm hoping that we can recoup as much of that money that we spent on him as possible. So there was uh, a report that West Ham was trying to buy him
I
over the
saw
summer for
that. I did
40
see
mil.
that.
And one of the reasons he declined it was because his salary on United, his wage bill, West Ham was not going to pay all of it. And United didn't work out that, okay, we'll still pay some of your salary even to play for another team and we sold you, right? And so that was one of the determining factors in him staying. So I think if West Ham was coming in for him at 40 mil and he was playing and as bad as he was playing and not playing for United and all the skeptics around him, I think if he's playing better or good enough for United, if we could sell him for 50, if somehow we pulled the wool over somebody and got him to pay 60 mil for Maguire, I think please pack his bags for him, like get him out of there for 60 mil. That would be an
Yeah.
absolute steal. An absolute steal if we were able to sell Harry Maguire for 60 mil. So, but
Okay.
so that's what I wanted to say on Maguire. Ultimately, it's great that he's a little bit better. He scored tonight, but he needs to go. Like, there's still moments you can still see him in possession. Personally, I think he's shocking. Defensively, individually, he's a liability. He always will be. He's not ultimately a good enough defender for United. So, but got to
Okay.
give him his props though. Okay, so that's on Maguire. Second point I wanted to hit on is Unana. For the love of God, we he had a save. I mean, it took 1/3 of the season for him to make one save, but he finally made it, right? So Onana, just this irks me. So I think I'm a part of the United fans that I still think it was the right
Okay.
decision to get rid of De Gea. Okay, it was the right decision to get rid of De Gea. Unfortunately, we've had to deal with what Onana's been. I don't know that they made the right decision in what goalkeeper they brought in, but I also don't think anybody expected the level of performance that we've been getting from him. It's flat out been shocking. Now the thing that I don't know is that was Onana playing in good enough teams that ultimately hid his liabilities, because the only teams that I know Onana from is Ajax and then Inter Milan. So Ajax is the best team, or were the best team in the Netherlands when he was playing there, right? They won multiple leagues. And then he went to Inter Milan, one of the best teams in Italy. Now, supposedly Man United is supposed to also be one of the best teams, but we also know that David De Gea, for essentially what's been one of the worst stretches in United's history, was a saving grace a lot of the times with saves. He was constantly player of the season, right? And so I don't think anybody expected the poor performance, the poor performances and the poor goals that Onana's let in. I mean, there are some goals that you look at them and you're like, how are you a professional
What?
goalkeeper? Like, why are you dropping on your butt? Like, dude, there would be one-on-ones. There's been multiple one-on-ones this season. He doesn't dive. He falls on his butt. And you look at him and you're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like that, you're not even diving forward. You're not even like, how are you falling on your butt? It's, it's to me, some of the stuff has been crazy from him. So it was really good to see him have an absolute clutch save that led to a United victory, right? So he made the penalty save in the 93rd, 94th minute, essentially the last kick of the game. You know, I remember De Gea. One thing with De Gea that always bothered me is I never felt he made penalty saves. So for Onana to make this save was astronomical, and I really, really hope that for him, this really changes. I really hope for him that this changes his trajectory now. Like, I hope this save gives him better confidence. I hope that we start to see more and more saves from him because, it was bad. It was essentially you shoot it on target, it's a goal. If it wasn't within his reach, it was a goal. Like, diving save, never heard of it. That's what Onana's been in the last couple months. So, freaking blessing out of nowhere. Because I was sitting there, that penalty is given up from United. I'm like, I had zero expectation that it was going to be saved. I was like, well, this is a 1-1 result. Great. And that's been Onana's fault, right? Realistically, that the fact that he's given nobody any confidence. So hopefully I can now see a progression from him, because the reason we bought him was that he was supposed to be able to play out of the back. And what he's had to do in the last couple games as to not essentially mess up is he's stopped playing the ball short. So the whole reason we bought him was to play out of the back, and now he hasn't been playing out of the back. So, we're gonna cross our fingers that this is a massive step in the right direction for Onana, right? So great save from Onana. Thank you. Finally, big time save for a big time money transfer on a goalkeeper, right? Finally saw it. So let's hope that continues. And the last point that I want to hit on is Ten Hag is not the guy. And I've been trying to back him, and I've been trying to back him, and I've been trying to back him, and I've been saying for patience, I've lost it all after this game with Copenhagen. The tactics from Ten Hag were absolutely atrocious. It was an embarrassment. That team didn't even look like a team. His tactics in the first half made me think, does he have a professional coaching license? There is zero midfielders going to the ball. He pushed everybody in a straight line, right? So you essentially had 5 guys just standing. There's zero movement. There's zero build-up play, right? Like patterns of build-up play consistently. The decision-making of the players is always awful, right? And so there's a level of like, well, is it the players? Is it the coach? No, it's the coach. And I will still say that it's the players. And I know that sounds weird saying it's the coach and it's the players, but it's both. There's been zero, and I'm blanking on where I wanted to go because I'm so frustrated with his tactics, but progression. There's been zero progression on the build-up play from United. Now, when you get into the final third, that's where your individual brilliance needs to come out, right? That's where the creativity needs to come out. That's where the special needs to come out for your players,
Right.
to a certain degree, right? Now, you still need to tell certain players, like, hey, you should be getting up into these positions. We should be seeing overlaps. This is what we're looking for more. But what I'm seeing from United is a team that can only play the long ball, and that's it. There's no patterns 10 to 15 yards from each other. There's no build up really from the back line into the midfield, into the forwards. We kind of play it around ish, and then it's a long diagonal ball, and if a long diagonal ball isn't on, good effing luck. So it's the tactics are so bad from him. Second piece that I'm over. He keeps somehow Anthony is back in the starting lineup, and the kid's a waste of space, an absolute waste of space. It, it's a bust. He's one of our biggest busts that we've ever spent on because he was an over $100 million player, and he's a bust. So the fact that Ten Hag continues to play this man without even a single shred of consistency is I'm over it. I'm over it. It's like you're doing it for certain players and you're not doing it for others. It's supposed to be based off of performance. He's not playing well ever. Why is he starting? Start different players. If you bring him on as a sub, fine. But this man starting is a travesty to United. Like he shouldn't be. It's a travesty. He is so bad. Dave, he picks up the ball, he stands there, he looks at the guy and he does this. No, I'm not moving, by the way. And then I pass it backwards. That's his whole game. He doesn't do shit. He stands there, shakes on the ball like he's going to move a guy from body thing. And then he passes it backwards. I would want to see the stats in front of me of how many one-on-ones he actually wins, because it's probably 0 out of freaking 0, because he doesn't take anybody on. He's a waste of space as a winger. It's so bad. And we overpaid for him, and I knew we overpaid for him, and you were trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's awful. He should not be touching the starting lineup on United. And the one saving grace that you have from him as a player that he's young. I believe he's under 22 years old. Okay, so in that grace, can you allow him a little more time to build into the team? Yes. Should he get some starts? Maybe here and there. Fine. If you freaking have to, fine. But he really should not be in ever your full-on starting 11. And I don't care if people would say, like, oh, he kind of does a professional job here and there. Does he? Does he really, though? Like, because does he? I mean, for Christ's sake, does he ever put in a cross that connects? Does he ever beat a player one-on-one and do anything that we're like, hey, yeah, you're actually very skillful? No, he doesn't. It's shocking. And so the fact that Ten Hag continues to play him, and I don't want to get into the skeptics of what happened with why he had to be out for kind of like a month and a half. But that's the other thing. He was out for a month and a half. He comes back, and then within a game of like being off the bench, he's now starting again. Get out of here with that nonsense. So I think Ten Hag, he's completely lost my faith after this game. The tactics were atrocious. His faith in Anthony is pathetic. Honestly, he's not performing. You look bad. You're not sticking with what you were in the first year of being ruthless or playing players based off of their performance. You're now picking players off of favoritism, and that's not okay as a manager. You still should be picking players off of performance, which is why McTominay started tonight, right? Because he had scored 3 in his last 2 games. So you're doing it for some players, but you're not doing it for others. Absolutely ridiculous from Ten Hag. And so I don't think he's the answer at United. Now, there's way bigger issues with United than just Ten Hag, and you can go on for days and days about United with that. But I'm just going to say I now no longer believe that Ten Hag is the answer. So we'll see what happens there. But appreciate you, Dave, for letting me go on my Man United rant.
Good.
Right? I had to get it. I had to get those 3 segments in. And so we'll end on one that Dave has a little bit more enjoyment with now in some NBA. So we're gonna finish the episode on some NBA. Okay, we're gonna go into our Eastern and Western Conference predictions, and then I want to hear very quickly, Dave, on 2 key trades that happened in the NBA. So first, I want to hear from you on who you think is going to win the West, and then I want to hear who you think is going to win the East.
If I had to go for the West, I'm gonna say I'm gonna go with Golden State or the Nuggets again. I can see that.
Yeah.
I'll touch on one of those key trades. I think Chris Paul to the Nuggets is a key trade. I think
Do you think that that was ultimately a good trade or not? Because the reports are still saying that supposedly going to start,
I
which
think
it's
that
kind of
I
crazy.
think that he's a solid addition to them. Um, I don't think you're ever going to see Golden State be what Golden State used to be pre Klay Thompson injury.
Hmm.
Okay, um, but I
Right.
think that Golden State has enough to always be there um, at the end. So that's what I'd say for the West for sure.
Okay.
For the
Who do you got for the
East,
East?
I don't think I'm not even going to give you. Listen, you heard it here first. I'm not even giving you two. It's Boston. It's Boston. Okay, it's Boston, and listen, buy your stock in Boston. I'm going to give you two now. Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis. Let's go. That's it. I don't want to hear another thing about it.
So, Dave, I just want to hear two words from you because when we talked about this a couple months ago, for the viewers that don't know, okay, we had talked about the Marcus Smart trade,
Right.
right? And I remember a little birdie saying that he
No,
thought the
no.
trade was
I think
bad,
Porzingis coming
and
is good.
I remember a really good-looking guy with some long blonde hair right now saying that
No,
the
no,
trade was
no, 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 no,
good,
no, no, no,
and that Boston won the trade. So I just want to hear two
no, no,
words.
no, 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 no. Look,
You're
look, look, look. I
right
thought
from
getting
Dave
Porzingis
that
was good.
Boston
I
won the
just don't
Marcus
think you
Smart
should
trade.
have got rid of Marcus Smart. I still stand by that. I think you could have made it
But you know you're wrong. You know you're flat out wrong. The the question is, did Boston win the Marcus
by
Smart
getting
trade?
Drew
Yes
Holiday.
or
Yes.
no? They ultimately won. They had won it with Porzingis anyway, right? And in this trade, it allowed them to still get Drew Holiday. So yes, Boston won the trade by getting rid of Marcus Smart, right? And it had to happen. They finally actually have an out and out point guard. And I think you're right. I think Boston should absolutely be the favorite in the East. Now, the interesting part of it is the Bucks because them getting Dame is very interesting because they picked up
Right.
some more offense, right? Obviously, really all that changed with the Bucks was they got rid of Holiday and
Right.
now they have Dame as their point. Do you think Milwaukee is better or worse from that trade?
Uh, Gotta look and see if it's Dame time. You know, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I think that
I
I
think they're
won't say
better.
that they're better,
I
but
think they're better, man.
but with a team like Milwaukee, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. I don't think. Again, it's the same thing. I think the Milwaukee had their time where they were like really up there, and I think now they're still in the conversation, but they're not. They're like the Lakers, you know, like they're still up there and they can still be in the conversation, but you can't really see them. I can't see the Bucks in uh, the finals. Can't see it.
Well, I mean, it's going to be the Bucks versus
I
Boston
would
in the
still
Eastern
say the
Conference
Heat
Finals.
have a chance.
That's my prediction.
Yes.
Over the Bucks?
Why? Why?
No,
Why?
no. Name
Don't
me
do that.
three players on the Heat that are better
Don't
than
do
the
that.
three players that I'm going to name. Dame, Giannis, and Middleton. So name
Dude,
three players on the Heat that are better.
listen. First of all, why are you calling me out on my NBA prowess? Because I don't even think I can name three players on the Heat. Jimmy Butler's still over there, right?
You obviously would go Jimmy Butler and you
Oh, I
would go
forgot about
Bam
him. Yeah,
Adebayo,
okay.
right? But they don't have a third. Right. They don't have a third. Obviously, they're based off of culture, right? And I understand that they did better last year, and I think did they sweep the Bucks or did they beat them 4-1? And I
Four
can't
to one.
remember now off the top of my head. But I think they
4 to
beat
1.
the Bucks. So but look, I'm still going even though that happened, I'm still going to say that it's the
Okay.
Bucks and Boston, and you can't. It's the Boston should be the favorite. And only because
Okay.
they picked up Holiday. If they didn't pick up Holiday, I think it's the Bucks and then Boston. But with picking up Holiday, it's it's Boston that should get to the final, and then it's the Bucks with Dame saying, okay, we now have more offense, right? With Dame, we don't have as much defense, but obviously offense,
Right.
ultimately is the name of the game. And if you can figure it out defensively, then you're okay. So I think that that's the battle in the East. I think it's definitely those two teams. Now, for me in the West, I think the team, and yes, it's because he's still my guy, but I think the team that people are still, and I don't think they're sleeping on them. I just think it's got to be the Lakers for me. Not I don't I'm not picking them to win the West as far as like to be in the first seed. I think that still goes to Denver.
Do they have
Um,
Anthony Davis still?
so I would go. Do I believe in him? No, but I think from what I am seeing, they picked up enough young guys that should be able to withstand during the season. Now, the reports are that Anthony Davis put in more offseason work than he's ever done
Where? In
previously.
church?
Do I really believe that? No. Who knows, buddy? I don't know. So, no, obviously I don't believe in it. It's the other thing that people, well, I think people have realized it, but LeBron's since going to LA has actually been
Oh
hurt every
my.
season, which has
Oh
actually
my.
really been a
Ladies and
big,
gentlemen,
it's been a big
you're
bummer.
you're talking to
But
a LeBron
no,
out
no, no,
here.
no. I'm not saying excuse, not saying excuse. Yes, but what I'm saying is like what LeBron built his career on was being
Sure.
like durable, right? Essentially, never being hurt and missing a lot of games. But realistically, since him and Anthony Davis has gone to the Lakers, they both have missed a lot of time. So I am hopeful that they've built enough around essentially LeBron and AD. But it's also kind of crazy to me to think that was LeBron in year 21, with still the expectations that he has on him. Kind of wild. I don't think any other player has been this far in. Besides, I'll give your boy Brady a shout. Besides Brady, that had these expectations this far into
Last,
their
hey,
career.
question.
But
Can I just ask a
so for
question
me,
though?
sorry, long
Speaking of
story
my boy
though.
Brady, how did he do with those expectations? You know. Okay, just
He
checking.
met
Okay.
them most of the time. But he was also one of the only players. Well, wasn't he also the player that came in with the least
We
expectation?
don't care about that.
So he had all he had was upside. He was the
We don't
last
care
pick in
about
the
that.
draft, so all he had was upside. The thing that people, oh come on, it's absolutely a factor that LeBron had the expectations that he's had, and he still exceeded them. Everybody understands that. But we're not getting into a LeBron debate right now. We're not doing that. So for me, I'm going to segue that back into I think who finishes first in the West is going to be
Okay.
Denver. And I think who finishes first in the East is going
Okay.
to be Boston. So those are going to be my picks for the winners. We did touch on the pickups as far as like who Boston picked up and who the Bucks picked up, but I want to hear who you think ultimately had the best, whether it be trade or offseason signing in the NBA. So the ones that stand out to me are Holiday to the Boston, um, Dame to the Bucks. You had Chris Paul to the Warriors, and then we had Bradley Beal to Phoenix. Right. So those are the ones that stand out to me. But do you have any others, or is there one for
I,
you that
I
really stands out before as
I
the
think I still have to
NBA
go
season kicks off?
Boston's pickups. Bradley Beal to Phoenix. Phoenix, I think, is another team
Mm-hmm.
um, that had their time. They had their flash in a pan. Um, I don't think that they're um, dead in the water, right? But I don't think that I
Mm-hmm.
think that they had their opportunity to really do well. I mean, obviously they still have Booker, right? But it's not going to be like you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to say, hey, they're the ones to beat. Like they're going to be fighting, but they're not going to be the ones to beat. Um, Dame to the Bucks is good, uh, but again, I mean, the Celtics got two superstars. You know, no, one.
Oh, so
I'm
now
gonna
you're
go with
calling
Porzingis.
Porzingis a
I'm
superstar?
gonna give him superstar status.
So now
We're
you're
in
calling
Boston.
Porzingis a
We're in Boston.
superstar? Look at you. Look at your tune changing, Dave.
You're
Come
in
on. Look at
Boston
your
now,
tune
so
changing already,
you know.
buddy. All right. Okay, well, that's going to do it for us here at More Than Numbers. Appreciate you guys tuning in to listen. Do us a favor, please hit that subscribe button, drop a like, And
Share
as
with your
always,
friends.
leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts on any of the segments that we talked about. Share with your friends, as Dave mentioned. We will be back in the next couple weeks. Look forward to seeing everybody then.
Bye.